Cindy,
Yeah.
about 3 boxes, about 50 bags.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'll bring them in after the.
Okay.
meeting. Yeah. Want me to carry them to your office?
Oh.
Okay.
Should have in her office. She's got enough stuff.
I'll give them back to Pound.
Yeah. Yeah, just help there.
Housekeeping.
Thank you. If you do that, yeah, like I said, I call it noon.
In person, please do not connect to Zoom or teleconference while in the room, and please silence all devices. If translation is provided, click on the globe at the bottom of your screen to select either English or Spanish. Public comment will be taken after each item. If you're in the auditorium and wish to comment, please use the iPads located in the lobby or complete a blue speaker card as available. If you need assistance, please find a South Coast AQMD employee. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes or less for all agenda items. Times may be shortened to ensure all speakers can be heard. A countdown timer will be displayed on the screen for each public comment. More time will be allotted for Spanish translation that is not simultaneous. For questions or issues on making a public comment, please call the public advisor at 909-396-2432. That's 909-396-2432. Please adhere to the speaker time limit and treat others with courtesy, civility, and respect. Failure to do so can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. Be aware that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, you authorize recording of audio and visual content presented during the live event and consent to subsequent use of the recording in the public domain by South Coast AQMD.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your board assistance briefing today. As you can see, I'm not Dr. Reese. She's not able to make it here in person, so I'll go ahead and take the lead here. Okay, so I assume we all have the agenda with us here. So why don't we go ahead and get started then with agenda item number 1. And that is going to be reviewing our board meeting for April, the agenda for the board meeting in April. Okay, so that should be your first attachment. As always, in that board agenda, why don't we start out then with what we're presenting with regards to staff presentation on this one and board discussion. And again, this is a reminder that this board meeting will be taking place out in Palm Desert next Friday. Okay. First up, we've got a overview and progress on our MATE study, the multiple air toxic exposure study. And I believe we do have Dr. Epstein with us to give a quick overview of that. Ron? There he is.
Online.
Hey,
Good morning.
Dr. Epstein.
Hi, everyone. My name is Scott Epstein. I'm a planning and rules manager in our planning division, and I oversee our MATES program. So we've been working on MATES for over 1.5 years now through the planning process. We're pretty soon going to start our monitoring campaign in the next several months. Most of the instruments are deployed and are being tested at the moment. In this presentation, we're going to talk about some background on MATES, show our progress in the planning process and starting MATES, and then also talk about 2 kind of special studies that we're doing. So one of them is on brake and tire wear, which is we're funding a contractor to work on that, and that's been underway for several months now. And then the other special study is looking at ethylene oxide kind of on a more regional level to evaluate what our local impacts are to regional ethylene oxide concentrations. So we'll talk about that in the presentation, and I can take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Andrew.
We had the ethylene oxide thing about sterilization a while back, and then I forget where I read it, but the ETO might be as high a cancer risk as, maybe not as diesel, but up there. Do we have any idea where that's coming from? And why this is sort of a new area of concern?
So ethylene oxide, we studied that already, went right through the sterilization. We already know what its potential is when it comes to public health. And we, of course, passed our Rule 1405 with more stringent measures and all of that. And those are currently ongoing right now and getting those things in place with regards to those controls that we required and within those And at some point, we'll be reporting back as soon as we start getting, once those get in place and we start getting the monitoring data, showing the progress, that they made. If you recall, when we worked on that, we did look at one of those sites, the Parker site, and was able to kind of show with real data, how effective those controls are.
So this is just related to the sterilization. It's not, there's other sources of ETO
No,
out there.
go ahead.
Yeah,
Needs some more broader, yeah.
yeah. Scott, do you want to answer?
Sure, yeah. So with MATES, we're looking at ETO on a more regional level. So there are measurements of ETO throughout the country, and we find pretty much everywhere you can find ETO in rural areas, urban areas, and there's really not much of a difference. The levels that we see in far away from sterilization facilities in central LA and Rubidoux are pretty similar to what we see around the country. So the question becomes, how much of the ethylene oxide that's just around regionally is coming from sources within our basin, or is just sort of background levels? We know there's a global background of ethylene oxide. So that's what this study is going to look at as part of MATES. We're going to measure upwind levels of ethylene oxide, kind of how much ethylene oxide is coming into the basin, and then how much are we contributing from our local sources. And this is sort of stemmed by the fact that ethylene oxide may have a higher health risk than previously understood. And OEHA was looking at updating their health risk factors, although that's sort of on hold right now.
Are the monitors only at the 10 sites of the MATES program, or do you have other, in regard to ETO, you have other sites beyond the 10?
Yeah, so ETO, you're right, will be measured at the 10 monitoring sites. However, for this special study, we have some continuous ETO instruments that can measure hourly concentrations. One of them will be deployed at a monitoring station in Ventura County, which is upwind to our basin. We'll deploy another one up at Mount Wilson that will be able to get sort of the atmospheric concentrations above, where we have urban impacts. And then one of these continuous instruments will be in Rubidoux. So we'll be able to use that continuous data kind of upwind, downwind, and then supplement it with our 10 monitoring stations to really understand how we're contributing to ETO levels.
Great, thanks, Scott. One more question here, Fred.
You say this is going to start in mid-2025. So do you think by then, is there going to be still any effects from the fires with the treatment of the debris, with the removal, with the sites that they are transporting them? Is there any way is there going to be any effect? And if so, will you be able to identify that that's a temporary thing, or what the effects are?
Scott, do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
extensions or with regards to the fire sites?
Yeah. So Jason's team, Monitoring Analysis Division, has deployed some very localized toxics monitoring in and around the burned areas. So none of our MATE stations are in those burned areas. But I think from Monitoring Analysis Division, from those localized measurements, we'll be able to see kind of how big of an impact we would expect. My sense is that, based on what we're seeing so far, the impact on the MATE stations will be very low, potentially no impact on the MATE stations.
One last question. The two monitors in the burn areas, have they found ETO? Those? Oh,
Sorry, I barely heard that. So you said the monitors in the rural areas, have they seen ETO?
no, in the burn areas. In the burn areas, are they finding any ETO beyond the back? The average ETO that
monitoring for ETO.
Do you want me to take? I don't know if Jason is in the room. I can't see.
Jason is not. Ron, do we have Jason on this?
No, Jason's at CARB.
Okay.
Okay.
Or Andrea?
Yeah.
But
I can get back to you on that. I'm
Yeah.
not sure that they're actually monitoring.
we did do the mobile monitoring for the gaseous.
But the stationary sites, of which there are currently 5,
Right,
I'm not sure we're looking at, but we'll get back to you.
yeah.
Well, actually, it's a pretty good segue though to the next topic. Unfortunately, Jason's not here to go over, but as you can see in the summary, we will be providing next Friday an overview of our incident response. And so we'll be able to discuss then things that we're working on with regards to air monitoring, enforcement, data interpretation, messaging outreach, et cetera, as well. So there'll be a presentation next Friday. So it's gonna be very exciting, I think. There's a lot of great topics, right? Between these mates as well as this other presentation by our monitoring team. So get ready.
Anything jump out as surprising or interesting or scary from what you've done so far?
I can't say myself, so
Probably too broad, I'm sorry.
just hang in there, Andrew. It'll be a great surprise, right? So really looking forward to those presentations. And then thirdly, Dr. Reese will be talking about some US EPA activities. I think we have Dr. Reese with us here on the screen. Hey, sir.
Morning, everybody. Apologies for not being in person. So yeah, we're gonna just give an update on the announcements from Administrator Zeldin in terms of the 31 deregulatory actions and what that impact is on South Coast, if any. There's been a lot of attention focused on that, and so I want to cover what is the difference between an announcement versus statutory requirements, regulatory requirements, and how that all works out.
Great.
And an update
Looking
on
forward to
money, I assume, too. I'm trying to claw back money. Will that be part of this?
No.
Okay.
Open to suggestions. All right. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Dr. Reese. Really appreciate it. Okay. Now moving back to the beginning of our agenda for next Friday's board meeting. We have two set public hearing items. The first one addressing our budget and Reg 3. Sujata.
Good morning, everyone. Sujata Jain, Chief Financial Officer. So this is a set hearing item, but it is for the fiscal year 25-26 Executive Officer's proposed budget, goals and priority objectives, and proposed amendments to Reg 3 fees. And we will be having a presentation at the special budget workshop that's going to be held next Friday after the board meeting. I can touch upon a few highlights. So in this budget, we have fees going up, most of the fees going up by CPI, which is 3%. Permit fees and annual renewal fees are going to go up by an additional 1.5%, which is the second year of the phase-in that was approved by the board last year. And fiscal year 25-26 budget, we will be taking from the reserves $3.1 million, so it's not a balanced budget. And some of the fees are cost recovery. So the fees, you'll see that there is some cost recovery for public notices, and applicants can do their own public notice as well, so they won't have to pay. There's a late fee being proposed for the Rule 2305 if the reports are submitted late. And then there's an increase in Rule 1180 and 1180.1 fees, which is also a cost recovery type of fee as well.
That's right. Great. Thank you, Sujata. Any questions? And again, this is setting that for the May board meeting. Okay, so next up, thank you again, Sujata. Next up, we're going to be, we have 11/11/11/21. So much by way of background, the board has previously, back in January, set these rules up to be heard on a public hearing for May. However, it was recently raised to us at the Stationary Source Committee meeting that there's a conflict, a meeting conflict. You probably already know SCAG is having their annual conference and general assembly out in the desert at the same time as our May board meeting. So there's a concern about having folks that want to, that are on the board to potentially want to be participating in that in the 11/11/11/21 process. So the committee did vote to recommend to the full board to move that particular consideration for adoption to the June board meeting. So this is what this agenda item is referring to. Okay.
So it's still going to be taken out for a vote at the board meeting?
That's right, because if you recall back in January, the full board did vote to set these rules in May. So they need to re-vote if they want to reset those rules for June. Yes.
Three observations. Most of the support for these rules come from the environmental community. I noticed that we received huge number of people, that were submitted by, I assume, an environmental organization supporting it. There's a little bit of overlap among those people, because I noticed a name on two of them, so I said, well, I'm gonna take a look at the first seven of this thing, and they were identical to the first seven of the other, so there was some duplication, but that happens. But I noticed that the environmental community talks about this as the most, important rules in 30 years. But my issue is with the space heaters. Space heaters are used in the winter months. And I look at the number of, actually I went all the way back to 2010, but I also took just the 20 to 2024, and that, which is 750 days in that period, and we only had four days in which we had exceedances, and most of them were about 0.072, 0.074, and the only one was 0.091. But that day, I look at LA, which was in the high mid-80s, and Pasadena was in the upper 80s, and I imagine in the Inland Empire, we're probably in the 90s that day, because we do have days like that. We had one just a couple of days ago, and we had a 0.072 based on that. So it just doesn't seem that we're selling this as a significant ozone reduction, and the environmental community, I don't think they're aware of what creates ozone, and when they do, because they said this is a great thing, because it's all a form letter. So, but the other thing, so I mean, it has no impact on ozone in the wintertime. The other thing I've seen from several people who told me this, and then also one or two of the letters, it's becoming more and more popular. The heat pump area space heaters. So why don't we just allow it to go through the process in the normal way without having this type of rule? Because the only thing, I mean, when I brought this up once before, one of the guys, one of the executives told me, well, it's reducing fine particulates. It's probably true. But it seems like from what I'm seeing and input, what I've heard from other people, is that this is a growing popularity. That's how I got it. I believe that.
Great. Thank you for that, Ron. Yeah, with regards to the comments, nothing precludes folks from having to comment twice, three times, whatever. There's no, limits of that. It's on either side, for or against, whatever. I will say that this coming Tuesday, we are looking to release a package, and we'll have a number of appendices. I'm not quite sure what we're up to now, Heather. 4 or 5 of them now, just on all the comments and response to the comments. So it's a real robust, and that's good, right? This is all part of the public process that we allow here in California, and I think it's good to get all voices out there, and you guys will be able to see all of those and be able to read up.
Let me just make one other comment about the leaders of these environmental organizations they need to be straightforward, and they need to be smart enough to know that space heaters have no impact on the ozone. It probably scattered ones through the winter months, but they need to be straightforward, and they're kind of like the Carney people who come up with a story and people buy into it. They need to have educated people so they understand the issues.
Can I respond to that, please? Yeah,
Sure,
so, So, we don't just control NOx or we don't just limit NOx controls to like a particular season, right? We do actually get ozone exceedances throughout the year because we have kind of wacky weather sometimes. But ozone or NOx control is really important in the winter for PM formation. We get a substantial secondary PM formation in the atmosphere. It peaks in wintertime months. And so it's really important that we reduce NOx to the extent feasible for PM as well as for ozone.
Thank you, Sarah. And with regards to like feeding onto that NOx emissions, just to kind of remind everyone that this proposal currently is looking at a 6 tons per day reduction in nitrogen oxide emissions from the project. To put that in context, our whole inventory for all stationary and area sources at 60, so it's 10%. Of all that we have authority to regulate. So it's not small. And so we do think it's an important effort. This was also brought up, by the way, back in 2016 AQMP and was again as a goal in our 2022 plan. So it's been out there in the domain. It has been long discussions and we're continuing having long discussions, as we develop and try to get to the best rules possible. Yes, Ben.
So, since you referenced the previous AQMPs, what was the inventory number back then compared to the current inventory numbers?
Right. So are you, I'm not quite sure if you're referring to all of it. So just to cover this 2022 plan, we were talking about right now, our baseline was about 350 tons per day. Even if we implement all those rules and regs that are currently on the books, we'd still get down, we get down to about 180 come 2037, and we need to ratchet down to 60. So we need 120 tons per day emission reduction. So it's a lot that needs. Now, a lot of that stuff also needs to come from the other sources, mobile, fed sources, et cetera. But again, focusing back on what we have authority over, we have more control over, these are really a significant effort. So.
I guess you referenced the fact that this rule would represent about 10% of the inventory.
The reductions.
Reduction.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was just curious.
The inventory is 17%, but go ahead.
Okay. So I was just curious how that compared to the previous AQMPs. The number that you had there, the 6 tons per day.
It may move a couple percentages. Obviously, it was like higher. We've had our efforts on the stationary side.
Right.
Yeah.
In all fairness to this rule, the particulates in the winter months from home is higher than in the summer months, which I think would go back to the furnace.
Which goes back to Dr. Reese's point about the PM being a concern in the winter months. Deborah, I finally saw you from a corner.
Hi, yes, just wanted to share with my board assistant colleagues that at the Stationary Source Committee, it wasn't put off for the month just for the sake of putting off either. It doesn't change any of it's important to note, it doesn't change any of the compliance dates for the rule.
That's correct.
That's it.
Thanks, Deborah.
I have a question.
Okay.
Tina Tran has her hand.
I have a question.
Supervisor.
Where is she?
I'm sorry.
Her camera's off, so I guess that's why she doesn't pop up.
It will never
I don't know.
satisfy everybody,
I'm sorry, Rod.
She's unmuted now.
in my opinion.
Okay.
Hi there.
Oh, hi. Hello.
You mentioned earlier there was a 6-ton reduction, right?
Correct.
That is the intent. Do we know by when? Or what is the intended date?
That is a future date on full implementation. So
Right.
sometime past 2036.
Okay.
What was 2060?
2036.
I have an administrative question with regards to Agenda 2B. Do we have documents related to that?
Yeah. We have documents related to what again?
2B.
Agenda item 2B.
Oh,
So I'm
right.
not
So
seeing it.
there are not documents in for the board meeting. It's just the title and synopsis. But these rules are happen to be released on this coming Tuesday, the full package, which will include our latest version of the rules, the draft staff reports, as well as again all the comments and responses to those comments.
But on the Stationary Source Committee, there was a slide presentation.
Yes.
Well, so you might want to take a look at the Stationary Source Committee to see.
Right. And I saw that, but we were wondering when the publication will come out.
Yeah. Yeah, the draft documents will be this Tuesday.
Awesome.
April
Thank you.
1st. Okay, you bet.
Fred.
Hi, Fred.
I have a question regarding the stationary source committee. So for 11/11/20 and 11/21, do I bring it up here now or do I wait for the stationary source item to come up?
Is it related to 11/11/11/21?
Yeah, it's about 11. Okay, at the stationary source, the way this rule was presented and at the latest version that the version that was published on February 21st, the mitigation fee of $500 was there, and then it was increasing to $800 from 2027 to 2036. That was changed at the stationary source committee. So it's changed to $500 and then with increase of annually with the price index, consumer price index, which would take it to about $650 approximately by 2036. That's fine, but a question came up or a suggestion came up that because the mitigation fee for space and water heaters are $50 and $100, why isn't the $500 $250 and $500? And immediately staff said, oh, this is a good point, we will look at it and all that. Now, from beginning, this was presented at least as $500. It became a little bit more stringent by increasing to 800, and now it's back to 500, which is fine. But I want to mention, I had a discussion with my board member, the $50 and $100 mitigation fee, its purpose is different than the $500 mitigation fee. The 50 and 100, the reason they are different is because the price of the units are different. One is cheaper than the other one. And it is for the years that the units are produced as they are in compliance. So they start with 70%, they go down to 50% and so on. So if the companies produce these units, they pay these mitigation fees and the district uses them to mitigate the pollution from these units that are in compliance. The $500 has a different purpose. It is if a company violates those percentages. It's not to accommodate companies. It's actually some sort of NOV. It's not called NOV, but it's like if you are not meeting the percentages, then you have to pay those. And those are, the way I have understood is within slightly above the profit margin of the units, which would encourage the companies to comply with the regulation. So if you're changing this for one of the units from 500 to 250, then producing these units above their allowed percentages would be much easier for them because they may still have profit by selling those, even paying 250. So for me, I mean, when I say for me, for my board member, this was a bad suggestion because the 50 and 100 have different purpose than this 500. It should at least be kept at that with the price index to discourage companies from exceeding the percentages that are already given to them. And starting 2027, they already can easily meet the 30%. So it's not a difficult thing to read. And reduce to 250, I think it will make it easier for them to violate this.
Okay, thank you for the comments there. I do.
Let me just say,
Sure.
we don't design it so that they go into violation. And even if they exceed it, I don't believe that would be a violation. So I just want to be clear because people will misconstrue that we're creating a rule that automatically puts people in violation for exceeding targets that we allow. So I want to disavow the violation aspect.
No, I know, it's not violation.
I understand, but you understand how people would listen in and say, this has happened, this is what they're saying. We are not saying that. So I just want to be very clear on that point.
No, it is. I absolutely agree. And I said it's just mitigation fee, but it has a different purpose. Is to discourage the companies from producing units above the allowed limits. I know it's not violation, but if they have to pay the 500, it will be easier for them it will encourage them to comply with the percentages given in the table.
Right. We like to say it's a motivator for the manufacturers to meet those targets. I can't put myself into the minds of the board members, but I can tell you that the staff and go meeting with the manufacturers, we meet with the manufacturers and we have lots of discussions about a lot of details of things as we want them on board with what we think is a really great proposal. But I can tell you from their perspective on this they did raise something like this because as you noted, the differences of those costs, the disparity, if you want to put it, between a cost of a water heater versus the cost of a furnace. And one thing that we hear from them, and again, I don't know if that's the same line of thinking, but for the water heater, because it's a less expensive unit, they have a more limited ability to recoup some of that because of the lower cost of the unit as opposed to the furnace. That's just what I want to put out.
I mean, ideally, it's supposed not to happen.
Right.
If
Yeah.
these percentages, then that $500 becomes mute.
Mhm.
So I'm not calling it violation, but I say it will encourage them to follow the table that's given for.
Gotcha. Okay.
Production.
All right. Great. Thank you, Fred.
I talked to Larry and he agreed with me that it would be interesting to know what the mitigation fees are. We have mitigation, where the money goes,
Well, this would go into the fund that we would provide incentives to additional people.
but the mitigation,
zero, yeah.
1111, 1121 mitigation funds are under an umbrella. I can't remember what it was. And I was curious to know, what is the current balance and what is your prediction and what's your forecast in regard to using this rule? How much money will be going into the fund? And that would suggest as a motivator, or it means that hopefully it grows so you can, so I think that would be an important information for the stationary source to see, and also the board to know that the money will go up and it will be a significant fund that some people would, go in and assuming that there was sufficient money for each water heater, or that it would be a motivator.
Well, we've advised the board that we're starting with 20 million roughly in the incentive fund. We have, and I've said, we've had roughly 100 million that would be available, but we want to see how this first pilot goes. And then I think in addition to your question about with the 100
unit, yeah.
with the additional funds that would be generated in the future, I thought we had a number.
We do have a number for that. From the furnace side, it's about 14, for the water, about 6. So if meeting that first level target's about 20 million.
But there should be a pretty dramatic increase with the, well, when you get into the higher
Actually
numbers,
it will decrease because that's just based upon the per gas.
because right now,
meeting
you're
the
getting
targets.
people with a little bit of money that they can expend on this, but at some point, you'll be getting the working class, unlike us, who don't work. No, the folks who are living, paycheck to paycheck, and that the funds should increase pretty significantly. I mean, this is the easy times right now, the 30%.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's try that.
Yeah, Tom.
I replaced my unit, which was combined, it was an air conditioner with a gas heater. And to put in a heat pump was the same cost. So, but that's because I'd already upgraded my panel. Do we have any estimate of, and I just talked to my neighbor and told him, get a heat pump. It's more efficient. It costs less too. But I'm guessing about $30 over month to month, about $30 a month. But do we have an estimate of how many homes or what percentage of homes that will be rolling into this replacement phase? How many of them aren't going to be able to make the changeover because they don't have the electrical system upgrade? Or do we just have no idea?
I mean, obviously, we're not going into people's homes. We don't know their electrical situation. However, just to remind everyone that the way the new construct is for the rules provides that consumer choice, right?
Right, I understand.
So if they're concerned about the cost of that upgrade, if things are just not affordable for them, again, their choice is there to continue on the gas unit.
I think a lot of people don't understand it because I hear this a lot. People saying, well, gas is going to be, you got a flame, it's more efficient. It's not. The heat pump is far more efficient to me.
So,
Yeah, the study showed that, yeah.
so Tom, I'm not sure Edison would even have that information.
I don't know.
They might know how big my panel is. They might know my current usage, but I don't know that they would be able to come up with the number of what that gap is for a wide range of apartments, homes, and other stuff. I mean, I suppose we could ask them. It might be
Sure,
protected
that people future
information.
plans and what they plan.
I remember when I worked for Edison, there were all kinds of people asking for information about utilization. That was all issues of confidentiality. So it'd be an interesting question to ask about, of the installed base of customers, what their panel capacity is and how close they are to, their maximum utilization.
One footnote we were just there are the studies, the RAS studies that do show that in our region, 87% of homes have air conditioning. So they already have electric power source for that AC. So those we find are not necessarily in need of those upgrades. Now, if they don't have the AC, it might be.
Yeah, the other problem though is that you might have a home that has air conditioning. Like I have one son that he has two air conditioning units outside, but his heater is inside, and it's completely separate unit. So
yeah, fair enough. Okay, great.
Michael Moore.
Yeah.
Michael.
Let's pop up to Michael real quick on the screen and we'll be back.
Hi,
Michael,
everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. I had a quick question. So, we keep talking about this alternative choice for the customer, but reading in the rule, it's up to the manufacturers to apply for this alternative compliance option by November 1st of 2026. If the manufacturers don't apply, is there any option for the customers, or is it just zero emission at that point?
No, the customer will always have the option, okay, in the construct of the way it is. But that's because we know that the manufacturers, keep in mind, we have seven manufacturers of furnaces, and they all sell both units. So you talk with those manufacturers, it benefits them to not only be part of that program, but they get to have both sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they choose not to, they can always sell all zero, but then a customer wanting a gas will then just go to another company, right?
Okay, so we're expecting that at least a few of them will apply by November 1st.
If not all, yeah.
Okay.
Why wouldn't all of them apply?
Right, yeah.
That's the expectation.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Sorry.
I wanted to know, I know we've been receiving a lot of letters in opposition and in favor. Is anyone responding to some of these letters that might have misinterpretation of the language or misunderstanding of the language? And I'm just wondering, is someone responding to some of these letters? Because we're all reading them, the board members are reading them, and we just want to make sure that the right information is going out there.
Absolutely. Really great point. And thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, as you know, that we originally came out with what people defining as a mandated, rule version. So we did get a lot of comments on that. That's why we're pivoting and rechanging the whole profile of the rule and the way it would be implemented. So yeah, we have a group of those types of comments. And then we also, and you're right, I think we have been receiving comments that after the new proposal, you're right, are sort of like still confused, I think, on that, talking about the forcing.
Yeah, because I remember in December, I know board members were really felt strongly about the sending out the right information and doing a lot of community outreach for these rules. So I just wanted to know are we doing that after the fact?
Yeah, yeah, we've had infographics. We've just had a recent one called Myth versus Facts. Our LPAM group is out there, distributing the words. We also have a number of presentations already to COGS and cities, either giving a presentation or testifying, just again, trying to get the right message out there. We're going to continue doing that. Yeah.
But to be clear, I don't think if I sent you an email opposing this because of the mandate, and I sent that after the change, you're not sending me back that graphic saying, by the way, you're wrong, because I don't think we tell people they're wrong. We might find ways to put out to
Clarify,
the general public.
Exactly.
But we are directly emailing back or mailing back to those that sent us physical letters by mail, this information, right? We're doing general public outreach.
That's right. It's general public
not a
outreach.
Specific response
But I think we
to
did.
individual letters.
Yeah, okay, so a couple of things. So first of all, when it comes to this type of outreach, we have done an email blast out. It's in both English and Spanish, as well as with the facts. So these same folks that are doing those comments, we have all those addresses, we have those in our mailing list. We have over 16,000 person mailing list on this, and so it's pretty large, getting that word out there. With regards to actual responses, again, this coming Tuesday, we'll be releasing all of those. There's about 12,000 comment letters, and we'll be releasing all of them and our responses to them. So
somebody that sends a letter or a comment by email, they go into that email database automatically?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they'll get, okay.
I mean, not so automatically, but we're
Right.
inputting it.
Yes.
Take some time. I
Yeah,
get it.
and it comes out of kind of a grouping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
of that.
We've received 12,000 comments on this issue.
Yes. Yes, I mean, some of those I will say are like a form, and then they proceed to boost thousands of, names and things like that. But we still, no, okay.
That would be from industry.
Yeah.
What is interesting is that those of us who are down here, we did not get that many. We got about slightly over 1,000 in support, and then maybe around 300, 400 opposing. So I don't know where these others, I think they went directly to the board members. And it skirted us.
Well, so there are some letters that or email that we'll receive, and there'll be thousands of names on it. And so we're counting each of those names in that 12,000.
Compare the names with the other.
So those are the ones that
Is fed.
yeah. So it's going both ways, right?
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting also is that you have only one city, according to what we get from staff, only one city that's supporting it, that's West Hollywood. And we have 10 cities, again.
There's more than that we've seen.
Mhm.
Maybe more, it's just we don't get it, so it's.
I've seen more.
And some are holding off. It's like we went out to Redlands and they're gonna hold off on a vote, and so they're listening to the proposal.
And I think, excuse me, because we've seen a lot of political people, they will be very careful in regard to taking a position on this because they need votes to get reelected. So I would suspect that most of them would just take no position at all. That's just my guess.
Right.
It's interesting.
Great.
So anyway, I sat through the 4+ hour shop.
You're welcome.
I think I left a few minutes before it was over because my dog was like, it's 4 o'clock, we need to go. But anyway, just staff did a really good job of herding those cats. And anyway,
Right.
you guys did a really great job. It was long, but it was totally worthwhile. So props to you guys.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. Good to hear. Okay, I think we've exhausted this topic. Thank you guys all so much. Really great insight. So I really appreciate it. Let's go ahead and get back to the agenda. Let's move on to our agenda item. It's I'm going to group them up here, 3 and 4. These are addressing monitoring costs for monitoring. And I believe we have Andrea Palladori. Dr. Palladori, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Hello. Okay, so if you could address, I'm not quite sure if you have the agenda in front of you, but the two issues are receiving a certain amounts of money under the PAMS program, the Photochemical Assessment Monitoring Stations program. And the other issue is looking at the community monitoring cost as well, transferring funds there.
Yeah, for sure. And good morning, everyone. So we have 2 items. The first one is to recognize revenue, appropriate funds, and issue solicitations and purchase orders for air monitoring equipment to essentially keep supporting our existing photochemical assessment monitoring station or PAMS program. And happy to answer any question you might have on this one. If not, the second item, I'll move on. And so the second item is related to our refinery Rule 1180, and it is to transfer and appropriate funds, issue solicitation and purchase orders for additional equipment and for services and supply items to support the operation of our existing community air monitoring network near refineries. Happy to answer any question you might have here.
I don't see anything in the room or on the screen. Okay, Dr. Polidori, I believe you are free to go.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to the agenda item number 5, executing contracts for legislative representation for us up at the Capitol in Sacramento. Go ahead, Lisa.
Good morning, Lisa Sanaka, Deputy for Legislative and Public Affairs. So this item came from Legislative Committee, the recommendation to approve a contract with Resolute, that's David Quintana and Alfredo Arredondo, to provide us representation in Sacramento. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
So did our other 2 incumbents just not apply, or?
So we have 2 existing consultants. We typically have 3. It's a very challenging budget year. We have cap and trade reauthorization as well as 3 sponsor bills and several others that are a really high priority. So we're just making sure we have adequate representation.
So this is in addition to?
This is in addition to the 2 that we
Okay, so you're around what, 800,000 for all 4 contracts total?
No, this would be a contract with Resolute for David Quintana and Alfredo Arredondo. And we were in the Capitol yesterday, and we had all 3 firms running around with us. We did a briefing for legislators and their staff on air quality with Capcola, Bay Area, and San Joaquin.
Well, that's great.
It was a help.
Yeah. Thanks, Lisa, for getting the word out there. There's a lot going on, very busy days these days for you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to our agenda item number 6, executing a contract to maintain real-time public alerts for hydrogen sulfide events in Coachella Valley. We have Dr. Epstein back with us again. All right, Scott, take it away.
Hi, everyone. So we have a few monitors out in the Coachella Valley to detect hydrogen sulfide, which comes from the Salton Sea. We have a website and alert notification system that we fund through Sonoma Technology. So we're just hoping to start a new contract with them so they can continue maintaining and operating that alert notification system for us.
Great.
This can sponsor the August fish fry when it smells so nice out there.
No comment.
Is the hydrogen sulfide from the Salton Sea?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is that we have some lakes in Southern California, and I remember this distinctly. I live near Bonelli Park. About 10 years ago, I was going down a road in San Dimas, and I smelled hydrogen sulfide coming from that lake. So there may be some issues with lakes around here.
Well, yep, they have fish normally and fish die. So, okay. Let's move on to our agenda items. I'll go ahead and just say 7 and 8, Sujata, if that's okay. Talking about the annual investment policy as well as fixed assets. Let's go ahead.
Thanks, Mike.
You bet.
So item number 7 is a routine item. It is for the reappointment of the county as a treasurer, and also to approve the investment policy. Any questions on that one? Okay, then number 8 is removal of fixed assets that have become obsolete. And we have 2 lists. One is equipment and vehicles. And the acquisition cost was about $1,160,893. And all these are fully depreciated assets. Happy to answer any question on that also.
And I don't see any other hands raised, so We're good. Thank you, Sajada. Really appreciate that. Okay, moving on the agenda now. We're going to go to our items number 9 and 10. We've got Cynthia Ravenstein with us to discuss the Replace Your Ride vouchers, as well as some new awards by MSRC. Cynthia, hello.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you. The first request item is for the Replace Your Ride Incentive Program that the not MSRC, that the Air District has been implementing for several years now. In October 2024, the program transitioned to a new California Air Resources Board grant, and there were some changes in how they determined what classifies as a disadvantaged community. And so this impacted some of the applicants that were receiving the Plus Up incentive. And so there were a total of 104 folks that received the Plus Up incentive of $2,000 that we need to reimburse the program for that because it was not eligible under the new grant. So the action is to transfer up to $208,000 from the BP ARCO Settlement Project Fund to the HEROES Special Revenue Fund to reimburse the grant funds. I'd be happy to address any questions.
The agenda item has a slightly different number. Maybe it's been modified.
It's been modified.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Ben. Anybody else have any questions for Cynthia? Anything else, Cynthia?
The next item is the MSRC item. This is relatively routine. The MSRC is issuing 2 solicitations for County Transportation Commission partnership and a regional rideshare integration and enhancement project. They also approved an award to exemplify for hosting and maintenance of the MSRC's website. I'd be happy to address any questions on that.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised in the room or on the screen.
Oh, I do see one.
Oh, sorry. I don't see her, so.
Sorry,
there
I
we
was
go.
a bit delayed.
No worries.
I'm not seeing the documents for this agenda item, so I do have questions. Who's getting it, for instance? Can you tell me more about the award?
The Exemplify LLC is recommended for an award of $20,200 for the hosting and maintenance of the MSRC website.
Okay. Do we have documentations of this agenda item?
I think all you have right now is probably just the title and synopsis.
Okay.
Friday,
We'll get it by tomorrow, right, when it's finalized?
That's
Yeah.
right. On Friday, we'll publish the whole board package with the board letters and any supporting documentation.
Even though it's a special board meeting, does it come next week?
Yeah, we still publish on
Okay.
Friday.
So upcoming Friday.
Copy that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Anything else for Cynthia? Okay, thank you, Cynthia. Really appreciate it. Carving out your time, busy day. Okay, next up, I think we'll just take these in a group. So agenda items 11 through 16. These are our information only, receive and file ones. If anybody wants to raise any questions or what have you in regards to these. Deborah, I don't see Mark, so I guess I get a pass this one, right?
Don't think I wasn't thinking it, but no, I'm good. I reviewed it.
Yeah, I mean, as always with our rule forecast, we're constantly looking to see, how the projects are going along and where they're moving to. So,
And we spent enough time on Rule 1111 and 1121.
which can shift things and change things around, of course. So just stay tuned. If you have any questions, you can always call me out personally. Okay, we'll move on then to agenda items. We'll just kind of bulk these up as well. The committee meeting summary, so 17 through 23. Yes.
Quick question on ledge on the emergency bill. I saw we're mentioned specifically in the bill. How are Bay Area and San Joaquin feeling about this idea?
They feel pretty good about it. Lisa mentioned yesterday that we were in Sacramento, and one of the things that Lisa and her team had arranged was for an intro to air quality for legislators and their staff. And we had a member, we had a number of staff, and we talked about the budget and we talked about sort of the priorities. So this was one of the issues where Phil Fine, Samir Sheikh from San Joaquin, and myself, along with Kip Lipper, senior consultant to the Senate, we talked about sort of the need for this program. So they're on board. This is something that we've actually talked about through CAPCOA, the California Air Pollution Control Officers Association. Part of the challenge is that South Coast AQMD is very unique in our technical expertise and just our experience. No other district has that capability. I would say that Bay Area is closest, given Dr. Fine's experience and expertise that he acquired here at South Coast. So he's going to be the most likely to be able to build that program out based on his experience here. CARB is looking at how they'll handle the Central Valley northern portion. And Lisa, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to it, but we've heard nothing but positive feedback on this. And in fact, you had a separate meeting that I wasn't part of. So maybe I can learn more about that later.
Yeah, we got really good positive feedback, and Capcom is, I think, on board as well, so.
Just your funding will be the challenge.
That's exactly right. And what Lisa and her team did was really sort of look at different scenarios, sort of low, medium, high. I think the high is, the Lexus Cadillac version.
Everybody has really cool monitors in a
Exactly.
separate facility.
Right. I think the medium or the low, depending on where the budget comes in, is going to probably be more likely. But everybody, I think, recognizes that given what happened in the wildfires that you're going to learn about next Friday, there is a need to have this kind of program in place. And it's really a pre-deployment, if you will, of resources, and it's the maintenance, the training, the maintenance that goes into the equipment that keeps everything current and gives everyone the ability to deploy when necessary. So.
And isn't it also the training so that the air district people can easily incorporate with the emergency response community?
That's exactly right. When I said training, I probably should have elaborated. It's not training just on the instruments and the care of the equipment and all of that. It's the whole shebang. How do we integrate with OES, with Cal EPA, with CARB, with Incident Command, with Unified Command, with Fire Department, with public health agencies? It's, from my perspective, one of the things that CARB and Cal EPA don't do enough is exercises and drills at that level where you combine it. At the federal level, you see a lot of that, but in our experience with the wildfire case, you had cities going, you had counties going, then you had the state and federal, you had all these different groups trying to unify under a unified command, but not really doing it. So there's a lot of lessons learned that I think we're trying to address with this bill. Marcela.
I have a quick question about that.
Yeah.
Have we published our support for that bill so that cities would know that we're pushing that bill
For the sponsors.
as an agency?
I don't think have we taken a formal support?
So we are, going to approve us seeking this as a sponsor bill.
Sponsor, right.
And, we literally just got, because we did it at the last minute with the fires and then there was a deadline. We just got the amended bill language this Monday. And so now we'll be working on all of those things, the outreach and meeting with, electeds in Sacramento as well as here.
Because I know that, my board member represents some of those cities, so it'd be good for those cities to hear that AQMD is on board with them.
So we'll be drafting a support letter. And once we do, we'll get that out to the cities.
Great. Thank you all for
Great
that.
question. Thank you, Marcel.
Okay, any other comments on the April board agenda?
I just had a quick question on 11/11/11/21.
Sure.
Has there been much media coverage on this rule?
How do you define media?
I just-
Wasn't in the LA Times.
Has it been in the LA Times? Has it been on the major news media or news stations here locally? Does the vast majority of the population here in the Southern California basin, are they aware of this rule? Are we getting the word out?
Well, I think, when you say, are we getting the word out? You have to look at how does government get the word out? Government doesn't procure TV commercials and bombard the air every 30-second commercials. We don't do that. So that, no. But do we reach out to the COGs, to the CAGs, to city councils? Do we go to homeowner associations, to apartment association?
Right.
Absolutely, we're doing all of that. Your question is difficult to answer because you could say that there have been articles in the LA Times talk about heat pumps and efficiency, and they talk about the general impact of what we're seeing at a federal level, and how it impacts overall environmental issues, public health issues. That has been in the LA Times. Has the LA Times specifically covered South Coast AQMD Rule 11/11/21? I don't recall seeing it spelled out that way. There are a number of other publications, however, that have specifically done that. We saw an op-ed piece. We saw others that we're responding to that have that. So, the distribution or awareness of some of those publications, they're probably in the tens of thousands, but Mike and
Yeah, I was
Heather,
gonna
you
say,
might have
when-
more to add.
as you know, we typically do have press releases and things like that for all various different projects that the board, supports and passes and what have you, to get that official word. And the reason for that is because it becomes an approved action, right? Up to now, everything is just still under a proposed umbrella, right? And that's all part of our normal, so it's really important that the messaging isn't that when things get, so that people get out, they feel like that's set in stone, and it's not the case.
And I think the other aspect is you have to look at social media. How many posts are we seeing? How many times are people looking at that? And how many times is it magnified? And we know that there's been a significant number of social media. I know we posted on social media on our own. So it's not easy to answer. Are we doing as much as we possibly can? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Local government, small business last week, there was long discussion about outreach, and it's like, you can't send a mailer to every address, and
I talked to one of my daughters about getting information. I said, well, I listen to the news, I'll read the newspaper, I get it off of TV. She said, that's old fashioned. I don't know where she gets her information, but she doesn't go to a newspaper or watch the news on TV. She has her special way to get information. Whether it's accurate, I don't know. But there's a problem. I did see one op-ed in the Southern California News Group.
That was one.
Yeah.
I think there was another it might have been the
Orange
same.
County, yeah.
Well, there was Orange County. There was one, I think, in
Orange
San
County's-
Gabriel.
I read something in the Orange County Register.
well, the Register,
Yeah.
the Daily Bulletin, the President
Right.
Prize, the Sun, they're all the same.
Thanks for answering my
Absolutely,
question.
of course. Thank you, guys. I love this team. I love this group. You guys come with all your thinking caps on, have great questions. Appreciate it. Okay, I think that wraps up this first agenda. So we're gonna go ahead and open it up then to any public comments. Ron, do we have any public comments
Yes.
on this first agenda? Rita Loof. Okay, we can bring her in. Rita, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Rita Loof, Director of Environmental Affairs for RADTIC International. And we are concerned with the impacts of Rule 1111 and 1121 on our industry. UV, EV, LED equipment is all electric, and our facilities have already converted from solvent systems that use afterburners. So these businesses have already greatly reduced the combustion emissions from their operations, and gotten no credit for those reductions. Since UV-EV LED equipment is electric, the facilities may be operating at a maximum load already. So adding a water heater or a space heater to the facility will increase the load and require upgrades and maybe permits from the city. So we need the district to provide some sort of relief to facilities that have already converted their manufacturing process to electric. Emission reductions from removal of an afterburner are much larger than those from a facility's space heater or water heaters. During the fires and power outages, the only way our businesses could stay open was to install backup generators. Otherwise, they would be shut down. And there should be an analysis of the emissions generated from backup generators versus the emissions reductions from the implementation of electric water heaters and space heaters. As was mentioned earlier, there was a significant discussion about this issue at the Local Government Small Business Advisory Committee. I'm a member of that committee, and we unanimously voted to take a position of oppose on these rules and pass that along to the AQMD board. And there was a letter that the committee adopted. So we hope staff can work with us to provide some recognition and regulatory relief for companies that have already implemented pollution prevention in manufacturing operations and have done so without any requirement from the district. They have voluntarily done so. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rita. Appreciate those thoughts. Anyone else out there for public comment on the first agenda item?
No other public comment.
Okay, great. All right, so we move on to our second agenda item, other business. So I'll go ahead and open it up. Andrew.
I have one random question.
Okay.
Fit with anything else really, mates or 11. This was probably in my previous tenure back in the Dr. Fine days, and I can't believe I've been retired for 5 years this month. Long time ago. You guys were going to do, or there was talk of doing a study about how meteorology is affecting, because the NOx emissions are going down and ozone is kind of staying flat. Did that ever happen? Am I having a distant, distorted memory, or?
That was studies I recall by UC Riverside. And Dr. Reese?
Sure. So we did a couple of studies. One study was UC Riverside, and it was looking at the impact basically of climate change. And sorry, my camera suddenly went off. Impacts of climate change and whether we're seeing a climate signal in our ozone levels. And the answer was we are not really at this point. We are definitely seeing increased ozone when the temperatures are high, but right now you can't tease out a signal that it's actually climate change. And then we do talk a lot with folks in academia about always checking where we are in terms of NOx versus VOC and whether NOx is still dominating and we're still a NOx limited system. We are still in that place where we're kind of in the sweet spot of the curve between NOx and VOC, where you need a lot of NOx emission reduction in order to move the needle on ozone, but we are still pretty much in that NOx limited system.
I have one other issue, comment on this. I do this all the time, looking at data. And in the Inland Empire, the NO levels in the afternoon during a summer day dropped to nearly zero. And so therefore, you have the ozone, but you're not getting the removal of oxygen from the ozone, turning it into the NO2 because there is no NO in the afternoon for most of the especially the warm area. It just goes down to zero. So when you don't have that, you won't get the type of reduction that you would have done maybe 10 years ago in the inland area. That's my only comment. I mentioned that to Sarah. I may be wrong, but it seems logical that if you don't have NO in the afternoon, you're not gonna have much reduction in ozone during that period. That's all I got.
All right, thank you for that, Ron. Anything else on this other business? Nobody's got something to tell us about an event coming up aside from our desert event next week? Okay, then we move on to the third agenda item for just general public comments. Ron, anything you've got there? I don't see anyone in the room for that.
Yeah, Moses Orta just.
Oh, all right, sounds good. If you want to bring him in. Hey, Moses.
Hey, Mike, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. Just wanted to chime in to just bring highlight to you for your board members. A big project that's coming along from the California Air Resources Board, which is the statewide mobile monitoring initiative. I've been part of the project expert group. I'm working on this project for a better part of a year, and just wanted to highlight it that it's been deployed and it's coming into the Air District. This program is designed the statewide mobile monitoring, or SSMI, to attain a comprehensive data set of criteria pollutants, toxic air contaminants, and greenhouse gases, create a data portal for the public to access and visualize the data, and conduct inclusive community engagement to better understand and address the community concerns. This project provides an opportunity to complement the AB 617 statewide air monitoring activities by engaging communities beyond those currently selected under the program. And the data will fill air monitoring gaps and support additional actions to reduce emissions and exposure. Just wanted to highlight two quick monitoring objectives. One would be identify or confirm emissions from sources of concern, and two, identify areas of overburden by specific pollutants and sources in the areas. And I just do also want to give kudos to some of the members from the AQMD team. They were great resources in part of this project. And as I mentioned, this is a project that's been along for a better part of the year, and it's been deployed and it's coming into the air districts across the state of California. Thank you for the opportunity to highlight this.
Great. Great information there, Moses. Really appreciate it. Anybody have any questions for Moses on what he just announced? Okay. Looks good. All right, then. We're just going to wrap it up then. This fourth item here, adjournment. Best news ever since it's lunchtime. So thank you guys all so much, and we'll hopefully see you next week in the desert. So have a safe trip.
Can I just do just one thing that I just want to note for you all? The budget workshop is going to be after the board meeting next week. So just want to make sure you're all aware of that. Okay.
And Wayne, do you know how long we should tell our board members to expect that workshop to? What is the guesstimate? To run
30.
Jada, maybe?
30, 40 minutes.
30 to 45 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Deborah.
This is just a pretty normal meeting. It's not like the retreat where we have a whole day of cool seminars and stuff like that.
This is just
a regular board meeting.
Board meeting. Yeah, it may be a little different because the SCAG General Assembly meeting's going on. So there may be people trying to shuttle between the two.
No, but that's for May.
Wait, no, that's me.
Oh, May, I'm sorry.
That's me.
Yeah, May.
We're just talking April.
Oh, yeah, next week. Yeah, no.
So the chair is now going to have some of these board meetings throughout the basin.
She asked for 2.
I heard that from my guy.
She had asked that previously. So last year, I think we did
The
one
Valley.
in Riverside.
The Valley.
Well, that was
The
2
Valley,
years
yeah.
ago, wasn't it?
Last year.
That was last year.
Yeah.
Was last year?
At that
The
cool
Blur.
City College.
You
Is that the
went
one
to-
way?
Yeah.
That was the one you went to, and
Right.
I told you, don't go. Watch it on TV. No, watch it on TV.
We did amazing.
You can watch it on YouTube, because the drive for us is delightful.
Oh, maybe it was 2 years ago.
It was 2 years.
Yeah,
It took
2
you,
years
what,
ago.
5 hours?
Yeah.
to
I
get?
forget. It was,
5
Okay.
hours?
it wasn't that long, but it
2
was.
years ago. 2 years
was
ago,
2 years
October.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
not, that's
that's
not.
right.
Yeah.
And the EJ conference is always like, yeah, that's a long drive home.
Thursday or Friday? Well, if you're ever doing it down in, Coachella, do it during their festivals.
Great. Thank you guys all
Like
again
good
very much.
advice.